The first thing David noticed wasn't the car itself. It was the way the headlights were flickering, the hazard lights casting a shaky glow against the wet asphalt. He had been driving home from his late shift at the factory, the kind of long, monotonous evening that made you question why you were even awake, when he spotted her. A woman, clearly stranded, standing beside a sleek black sedan with the hood up. Rain slicked her hair to her forehead, and she looked utterly helpless. David's first instinct was hesitation. It had been a long day, his stomach still growling from the half-eaten sandwich in his truck, and the last thing he needed was to get involved in some roadside drama. But then he thought about Emma, his 8-year-old daughter, tucked into bed at home. She would want him to help. Always help people, he whispered to himself. And with that, he pulled over. She was shivering when he approached, arms wrapped tightly around herself. "Hi, can you help me? I think my car's dead," she said, her voice soft but strained. David nodded, though he didn't know the first thing about fixing luxury cars. "I'm not a mechanic, but I can take a look." He popped the hood and squinted at the complex engine beneath. It was intimidating, a labyrinth of wires and polished metal, nothing like the beat-up trucks he was used to fixing in his driveway. While David fumbled with the hood latch, the woman pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders. "I'm so sorry. I don't usually get into situations like this." David smiled, trying to ease the tension. "Happens to the best of us. You never know when your car's going to betray you." He reached for his phone. "Do you want me to call a tow truck?" She hesitated, biting her lip. I think that would be best, but I don't want to trouble you more than necessary." David waved her concern away. "Don't worry about it. I've got some time. You're not going to be standing out here alone in the rain." The tow truck arrived after what felt like an eternity. David stayed close, chatting awkwardly to keep the woman's mind off the rain dripping down her face. She laughed at his jokes hesitantly, and David realized how small gestures of kindness, an umbrella, a hot coffee, a listening ear, could transform a moment of fear into a fleeting feeling of safety. "Thank you," she said finally, as the driver prepared to load the car. "I know this is... you didn't have to do any of this for me." David shrugged. Everybody deserves a hand sometimes. He didn't know why, but the sincerity in his voice surprised him. "I've had people help me before." It felt right to pass it on. She looked at him for a long moment, as though she wanted to say something more, but didn't. When the car was finally secured on the tow truck, she reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "I should give you this," she said, pressing it into his hand. "Just keep it. You might find it useful someday." David barely glanced at it. "Thanks, but I doubt I'll need it." He didn't even recognize the name. And then she left. Life moved forward like clockwork. David returned home to Emma, who leapt onto his lap and begged him to read her a story before bed. He kissed her forehead, feeling the familiar ache of fatigue and contentment that came from being a single father. Work, bills, homework, dinner, everything was a balancing act. And yet, for all its chaos, it was his world and he loved it. Weeks passed. David almost forgot about the stranded woman until the day he received a letter at his modest apartment. It was from an attorney on official letterhead, and it made him freeze in disbelief. The letter explained that the woman he had helped, Ms. Vanessa Whitmore, was the billionaire CEO of Whitmore Industries, a conglomerate that spanned multiple continents. She had been struck by his genuine kindness and selflessness, and had arranged a personal gift to show her gratitude. David read the words over and over, convinced he was dreaming. The next day, he found himself standing in a sleek corporate lobby, the kind he had only seen in magazines, waiting for a woman in a tailored suit who exuded confidence the way some people exuded light. When she walked toward him, her presence was impossible to ignore. "David?" she asked, her voice warm yet commanding. "I hope you're not mad I tracked you down." David shook his head. "No, I'm just surprised." "You're, she laughed softly. "A billionaire, yes, but today I want to be just Vanessa. Just a woman thanking someone who didn't treat me like a trophy or a headline." They sat together in a private office, and she explained that she had watched him handle their encounter with nothing but patience and humility. In a world where most people would have ignored her or demanded payment, he had offered help freely. That, she said, was rare. "I want to help you," Vanessa said, sliding a thick envelope across the table. Nothing extravagant, nothing that changes who you are. Just some support for you and Emma. Consider it an opportunity to give your daughter a few chances she deserves. David's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. It was more money than he had ever seen in his life. Enough to pay off the mortgage, secure Emma's education, and take a breath, for the first time in years without worrying about bills, pressing down on him like a weight. I don't even know what to say," he stammered. "You don't have to say anything," Vanessa said. "Just keep doing what you're doing. Teach her to be kind. Teach her that helping people is worth more than any paycheck or position." David left the office in a daze, but as he drove home, he realized something profound. The world still had kindness in it. It wasn't always loud, and it wasn't always rewarded in obvious ways. Sometimes, the universe had its own quiet way of noticing who you were and what you stood for. When he walked into his apartment that night, Emma ran toward him with a drawing she had made. It was a picture of their family, with rain falling softly outside a little house, and a tiny figure standing beside a car, holding an umbrella. "I drew you helping her," she said proudly. "You're my hero." David hugged her tightly, feeling a lump in his throat. "You know, kiddo, sometimes heroes are just people doing what's right, even when it's hard." In the weeks that followed, David used the gift wisely. He invested in a small tutoring program for local kids, ensuring Emma had access to activities she loved, and even set aside time to volunteer at a community center. Every act, small or large, carried the echo of that rainy night, the night he chose to stop for a stranger. Vanessa and David stayed in touch, but it wasn't a relationship defined by money or obligation. Instead, it became a friendship built on respect, shared values, and a mutual belief in the goodness of people. On the surface, their worlds were different, one of luxury, one of modest means. But the bridge between them was the simplest, most human connection of all, empathy. One afternoon, David found himself driving home with Emma again. They passed a car pulled over on the side of the road, the hood smoking faintly. Emma nudged him. "Dad, can we help them?" David glanced at her and smiled, feeling a familiar warmth. "Of course, kiddo. That's what we do." Pulling over, he stepped out into the sunshine, ready once more to offer a helping hand. And as he approached, he realized that the universe didn't always reward you in grand gestures. Sometimes it simply allowed the ripple of one kind act to continue spreading, touching lives in ways you could never anticipate. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, David sat on his porch, sipping a cup of coffee and watching the stars. He thought about the woman in the rain, about the envelope of opportunity, and about the quiet, uncelebrated moments where humanity shone the brightest. He realized that the real gift wasn't money or recognition. It was the reminder that in a world that often seemed cold and unforgiving, one act of kindness could spark a chain reaction, one that could change lives, inspire generations, and restore faith in something deeper than wealth or power. The enduring strength of the human heart. And as the night deepened, David smiled to himself, thinking of Emma dreaming peacefully upstairs, knowing that he had passed on a lesson far more valuable than anything money could buy, that helping others, even in small ways, was the true measure of a life well lived.